Look, I have no problem keeping this VOD up. I feel like it's cursed and it's going to give you mental illness. I feel like if anybody watches this VOD, you will lose your fucking mind. Everybody who watched this stream, pray tonight. Long and hard. Go get a blessing. Cursed stream, dude. Okay. And I know exactly what happened. I know exactly what was happening. Yeah, Pakla, holy shit, dude. I basically thought I was going to like casually solve this at the beginning of the stream and then we were going to move on. I just spent almost 2.5 hours fucking up over and over and over and over again, dude. But yeah, as you can see, I know how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And I know exactly... Dude, those are corners that look like they're right, but they're not. They look like they're right, but they're not. And I knew that they weren't right, but I couldn't figure out how to fix it. So I just kept fucking being like, hey, let's give it a shot. Maybe it will work. But now I know that the yellow has to be on the outside when it's in the bottom left corner. Wow. Let's feed the cats. Let's feed the cats, boys. We're probably going to end the stream really soon. Yeah, I think I have to private this VOD. Like, I'm not embarrassed by the VOD. But I just feel like people shouldn't watch this VOD, dude. I don't think it's good for you to watch this VOD. But I'll fucking leave it up. It's like The Ring, dude. It's like The Ring. 7 days. If you watch this stream, you'll fucking lose your mind in like 7 days. Footy! Are you clopping? When the footster's clopping, you know it's popping. Okay, well, in conclusion, I can solve a Rubik's Cube. And even though I just fucked up for 2.5 hours straight, I know exactly what was going wrong. That was a very strange problem. That was a very weird problem that the sweetie did not address. The sweetie did not address it in her video. So what I learned is the reason that you take the good corner down to the bottom right is because whatever corner is in that bottom right, when you do the algorithm, stays the same. So whatever corner is the bullshit corner, you just want to keep shifting it somehow. And eventually you can fix it. She forgot to warn her little buddy about the bullshit corner. And that is a nightmare because you get all the way to the last stage before the final solve, and then you blow it. Dude, I should make a comment on her video because other people are saying the same thing. Other people are like, I get all the way to the last stage and then it doesn't work. That's why. I figured it out. They're getting the bullshit corner. There might be even getting more than one bullshit corner. The curse of the bullshit corner. Yo, so I'm reading a book about the caste system. I was thinking about making a video about it, but it would come off as very snobby. Okay, Farty, you want to eat in the drum room today? Here you go, footy. Footy, footy. Yo, but this book that I'm reading about the caste system is like blowing my mind, bro. So there's the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, that one's hard to pronounce. The Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the I remembered it earlier. Why can't I remember it now? Are we going to Crackle City if I try to remember? And the Shudras. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. The Brahmins are the priest class, and the priest class was traditionally on top. The Kshatriyas is like the government class, so like kings and government positions. The Vaishyas is like the merchant class, and then the Shudras is like the working physical labor class. And this book is Rene Guénon, Julius Evola, and Fridtjof Schuon, and they're all writing essays, first on the caste system, and then I think eventually, I haven't got that far yet, then they write essays on race, which is a little spicy for YouTube, but... So then, in Plato's Republic, you have the Philosopher King, which are the head, the chest, which is like the government, and then the stomach, which is like the working class, which would be the combination of the Shudras and the Vaishyas. And then in the Catholic feudal system, you have the priest class, and then the king, government class with the knights, and then the peasants, and probably the merchants, and then the peasants. So that system is mirrored in Plato's Republic, the Indian caste system, and the medieval feudal caste system. And the idea is that the caste system was very accurate, and people are confused and lost. Some people are very confused and lost without the caste system, because if you're born of a Brahmin mother and a Vaishya father, that was said to be like a curse, which was called the Chandalas. I believe that's what I am. I believe that's exactly what I am. My mother comes from like a Brahmin family, and then my father was like a Vaishya. And that's why we blew it. It wasn't my fault, dude. It was God's fault. It was God's fault. It wasn't my fault. I didn't choose to be born a Chandala. One more again. Just one more again, baby. Whew. So I was supposed to make a video tonight. I should still make that video. I don't really feel great about spurging out for 2.5 fucking hours, failing to solve a Rubik's Cube, but hey, shit happens, dude. Well, they haven't said anything about that. No, that's probably... I'll bet when they get to the section on race, they'll start addressing that. But the caste system wasn't meant to be about, like, inferiority or superiority. They stick to their own, you know? The Shudras stuck with the Shudras, and people who worked physical labor tended to, like, go to the bars, have more promiscuous sex. They were more anchored in the material. And then the Vaishyas were more anchored in, like, what they could buy with their higher positions of wealth. And then the government positions, the Shikartas or whatever, Kishartas, they're men of action. They arguably could be seen as the most intelligent, but the Brahmins are like the philosophers. They're like metaphysics. And I'm always clashing with the freaking Vaishyas and Kishartas, because this is where it gets crazy, dude. The industrialized world, the machines, factories, they were built by the Vaishyas. Science is of the Vaishyas. So the scientific world, like scientific atheism, evolution, Darwinism, this is like an usurping of the Brahmin class by the lower caste of the Vaishyas. That's why I posted that quote on X, that progress is more or less a Vaishya illusion. And that's why the world is all fucked up, dude. Because science comes from the low caste. It's the lower caste of the Vaishyas trying to do philosophy and fucking up the world because they got carried away with their machines. The industrialized world is a world that has rejected God. Bing, bang, boom, bing, pow. Yes, exactly, Duke. Dude, this book is blowing my mind. This book is fucking blowing my mind, dude. Castes and races. Julius Evola, Frigith Shuon, Rene Guénon. And those are the three perennial philosophers. Like, Julius Evola was inspired by Rene Guénon, and Frigith Shuon was a student of Rene Guénon. Rene Guénon was initiated as a Martinist, but then eventually he got initiated as a Sufi. I'm pretty much a perennialist, dude. Like I said, if you want to email me, my email is perennialstoic@gmail.com because I was the perennial stoic before I was the reformed stoic. I'm basically the perennial stoic again, dude. I gotta tell you, I have loads of respect for yoga. There are some Pajits out there who are like very wise, dude. There's a Pajit somewhere like on a mountain going like this, and he's very wise. And I feel like he has a better understanding of God and metaphysics in the world than a lot of priests do. But yeah, for some reason, India is like kind of a backward shithole. But I don't know. They forgot about our little buddy, Krishna. I watched a documentary last night about witch burnings. Dude, the witch burnings were fucking horrible. Like, some of these, like, far right, like, the Crusades were based, and, like, the feudal Catholic times were based. That's what Rick Perry said. Like, everything Christian was based. Dude, the witch burnings were, like, not based at all. I'm sure some witches were, like, legitimately evil, I guess, but there would be little girls who were like, Mommy, she's a witch! So, like, little kids saw the power that they had. There was, like, these masses of normies who were hanging off of, like, who little girls thought was a witch. Like, Mommy, she's a witch! And so they would torture the witch for, like, days until she's like, okay, I'm a witch. And then they fucking burn them at the stake. It was normie shit, dude. I'm thinking about making a video that basically normies have always been evil. And, like, mainstream Christianity was, like, full of normies. That those were the ones who did the witch burnings. And then communism. And then communism had normie hordes. So it's not that, like, Christianity is always only bad. Because then you had communism, which was atheist and was against Christianity. And then that was full of normies. Through and through, guys, I'm a fucking anarchist. Like, I understand the value of, like, an authoritarian government, and I get where the far right is coming from. I think I would have, dude, like, you see me, I've been persecuted by, like, the government and Neighborhood Watch. They would have had me burnt at the stake. No doubt about it, dude. If I would have lived in Catholic feudal times, and it wasn't just Catholics, like, Protestants did a lot of witch burnings. A lot of the witch burnings were Protestants. They would have fucking not liked me because I'm different, and they would have called me a witch. And now I'm literally into, like, aspects of the occult. They would have called me a witch and burnt me at the fucking stake, dude. So I like living in a liberal society where you're not fucking burnt at the stake by a bunch of fucking normies for being different. If we lived in Catholic feudal times, if we lived in yay old times, these same people who were in the Neighborhood Watch trying to cause problems for me would have said I was a fucking witch and had me tortured and fucking burnt to death. So, no, the feudal Catholic times were not based. It wasn't based, dude. Freedom is based. In conclusion, freedom is based. Now, what we're seeing is that there's hordes of degenerates, and we're basically at the fault. We're at like the collapse of the Roman Empire. We're basically seeing the collapse of the Roman Empire all over again, dude. In defense of feminism, a lot of the witches were just like women who didn't want to fucking conform, dude. It's like, she's a witch because she didn't want to get married and she wanted to fuck off in the woods. And yeah, they were kind of like feminists. So people are like, yeah, based, like crusaders, feminism is cucked. On some level, dude, I don't think women should be forced to do things. I'm starting to understand that I'm basically a liberal, you guys. I'm a fucking liberal. Why? Because I like freedom. What happens when you don't have freedom? What happens when you have la-based Catholic feudal system? A bunch of fucking normies are like, he's a witch, and then you're tortured and burned, bro. I like freedom. Unfortunately, when we don't have like authoritarian force, there's a lot of degenerates, there's a lot of manipulation, there's a lot of capitalist manipulation. But what's the rule of anarchism? The government is always full of fucking evil normies and useful idiot normie hordes. The useful idiot normie hordes are always useful idiots for the government. And so in an authoritarian system, there's always hordes of normies who conform, who have you tortured and killed. So we don't want that. Hence, libertarianism or liberalism or anarchism. Yeah, old widows and those who weren't useful for society. I'm not useful for society. I understand that it's good when society... I mean, I am useful for society. I'm just not being used for anything. Society's fucked. We don't live in a meritocracy. Sweetie! If she had a crystal and a light went into it, people saw a rainbow. They would be accused. Real. Now, I'm not trying to say that there's no bad paganism. There was paganism that, like, I'm sure there really was human sacrifice and degeneracy in paganism. But a lot, if not most of the people being burnt at the stake as witches were just fucking, like, autists. It was literally normies having autists burnt at the fucking stake. All of us recognize now that normies don't like Spurg burgers. Well, in the Catholic feudal times, they would fucking have you put to death, dude. For being weird. And when I went to church for years trying to make it work. They're full of normies, dude. And they would love to do the same shit to you now. Just for not being normal. I basically think you can combine occultism and Christianity, and that's pretty much what I'm living. I watched a video about like speculating about Jesus traveling to the Himalayas, and they take it really far that like he didn't really die on the cross. He was a yoga master, so he just like looked like he was dead, but he wasn't. I don't know how far I would want to take that. I feel like I can compromise. I could basically compromise and say that I feel like Jesus really did die on the cross and really did resurrect from the dead, but he might have traveled to India and studied with yoga masters. I mean, I see Eastern teaching in what Christ taught. I don't really see much of the Old Testament in what Christ taught, bro. But I don't know. I'm very flimsy on all of it. It's just like, obviously, I'm starting to lean towards Gnosticism. I'm starting to lean towards Eastern Jesus. A lot of people would probably say, if you're a Christian mystic long enough, you'll probably just start saying you're a mystic. You'll probably eventually just like leave behind Christianity altogether. I'll always love Jesus, bro. I'll always love Jesus. I'll always love what Jesus taught. But I feel like once you see it, you can't really unsee it, dude. Like, the oppressive government comes from Judaism. And, like, the free spirituality that I feel like is in line with the truth comes from the East. So Gnostics is in line with like Jesus being Eastern, like having an Eastern teaching. At best, if that's incorrect, coincidentally, Jesus sounds a lot like a yogi. He really does. He teaches this loving, accepting way that just so happens to sound like very Eastern. And then it's like, hey, well, what was Jesus doing between 12 and 30 years old? Oh, well, it doesn't matter because the gospel doesn't talk about it. If the gospel doesn't talk about it, it doesn't matter. I mean, think about your life. Think about your life between 12 and 30. Most of your fucking life happened between 12 and 30. That's like your entire adult life before being a chud in your 30s, dude. It's pretty significant. Like, whatever Jesus was doing between 12 and 30, it's pretty significant, dude. Lots of blowing it. Like, I was just blowing it. That's really about the time I started blowing it, dude. For a long time. Like, I'm 12. I'm going through puberty. Time to start getting women. Nope. Blowing it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I fucking blew it for almost 20 years straight. Literally 20 years straight, dude, because I'm 34. Oh, yeah, he was just a carpenter and he built stuff. And then he was like, hey, I want to go travel and teach people things. Like, he probably read some books. He was very knowledgeable. I gotta tell you, man, if I keep following the slippery slope all the way down to Jesus was enlightened, but he wasn't really like God, I don't even think it would matter. I don't even think it would matter, dude. He's still one of the greatest teachers of all time, but Buddha's also a great teacher. Confucius is a great teacher. Lao Tzu is a great teacher. Shang Tzu, that one's hard to pronounce. They pronounce it like Changsha or whatever. The Taoist teachers were great teachers. Buddha was a great teacher. A lot of yogis were great teachers. I think that Jesus was the best. Like, not even being biased, I believe that Jesus was the best. And look at the impact that Jesus had on the world. But at the same time, you could really make the argument that Catholicism turned the world into the most terrifying totalitarian system we've ever seen. Like, bro, that's a time when you're like, man, I hope they don't, like, accuse me of something to where I get fucking tortured and then burnt at the stake. Christianity created some of the most horrifying totalitarian times fucking ever, dude. And people are like, oh, yeah, that's based because I wouldn't get burnt at the stake. I wouldn't get tortured. Are you sure, dude? Are you sure? And that's the same thing about fascism. I wouldn't get put in front of a firing squad. Or communism. I wouldn't get put in the gulags. Are you absolutely sure? Because I can tell you, how do I not get put in a gulag in communism? How do I not get gassed in fascism? Which, let's be real, maybe fascism isn't even... Maybe fascism was low-key, like, not like that. Which I'm sure we've all considered at one point. But how do you not get burnt at the stake in the feudal times? How do you not get thrown in the gulag? You be an insufferable fucking useful idiot normie who has other people sent to the gulag. And that's the normie mentality. Why do they call everybody incels? You're an incel. You're an incel. You're an incel. When's the last time you got laid? Are you sure you're not an incel? No, you're an incel. Like, dude, that's why they accuse everybody else. That's why normies on Reddit love calling people incels. Because they might get accused of being an incel. Well, if I'm accusing everybody else, then nobody's going to accuse me. That's the normie mentality. That's always been the normie mentality. That was the normie mentality in communism. That was the normie mentality in the feudal times. You're a witch. You're a witch. You're a witch. Are you sure you're not a witch? You're a fucking against the Stalinist regime. You're against Stalin. You're against Stalin. You sure you're not against Stalin? Dude, normies are always fucking useful idiots for totalitarian system. You don't want to live in a totalitarian system. And I'm like, it seems like there's a lot of mysteries to fascism, to Hitler. I'm not completely sold. I'm not just putting on an act for YouTube. I'm not just putting on an act for YouTube so I don't get in trouble. Like, I'm not completely sold on Hitler. He might have done some things wrong. I don't know. There's a lot of questions to be asked. But they don't want you asking questions at all. See, at the same time, what society says, like, Hitler did everything wrong and he was the worst man who ever lived. I have some questions about that. But then you have, like, the alt-right, basically neo-Nazis. I have some questions about that as well. My position, the best that I can come to is, like, I'm glad we don't live in authoritarianism. I don't want to live in authoritarianism. I like freedom. I like the right to be a chud. I think I would have been burnt at the stake. I think I would have been thrown in the fucking gulag. This society doesn't burn me at the stake, and it doesn't throw me in the gulag. It did gang stalk me for 5 years straight, but I don't know exactly what that was. That very likely, though, might have been the aspects of the government that wish that it could burn me at the stake and wish that it could throw me in the gulag. That's the part of the government that wishes I could be thrown in the fucking gulag and wishes I'd be burned at the stake. But it just tries to, like, do whatever the fuck it did. I started watching Adam Green to learn his talking points. There we go. You know, everything that I've just said in this rant is basically saying that, like, the Christian establishment is wrong. But what Adam Green says is that Christians are like slaves of Judaism. I'm a fucking Gnostic. I mean, there's some people in Adam Green's circle that are Gnostics. I don't think Adam Green's really that intelligent about philosophy. I think the bottom line is that Adam Green, like, isn't really, like, a well-rounded philosopher. But yeah, as a Gnostic, it's like, I think that somehow that maybe I can't explain. I did create that manifesto that has the theory that Jesus was trying to infiltrate Judaism. But I basically don't really see Jesus as the Jewish Messiah. Jesus taught against the law. Now, a lot of what I'd say about Adam Green is that his problem is that Christians aren't more like Judaism. I would say that Adam Green is, like, pro-Jewish. He's like, Christianity is weak because it's not like Judaism. Jews are strong because they're Jewish. That's his argument. It's like, Jews have the tribal system and Christians have the universalist system. And it would be better if we had the tribal system. Me, as a Gnostic, is like, no, what Jesus taught is better. The universal system that Jesus taught is like yoga and like Eastern philosophy, and it's better. And the Jewish tribal system is wrong. But it's like, oh, but Stoic, according to Adam Green, Jews are so strong because they have the tribalist system. And that's why they dominate the world, because they're tribal. It starts to get hard to explain on YouTube because you'll get in trouble. I might have already said too much, according to YouTube. Well, as a Christian, as a Gnostic or as an Eastern perennialist, like, that doesn't really affect me. I like what Jesus taught. But yeah, when you create a universalist system where so many people have abandoned tribalism, and then you have this one group that maintains their tribalism, you'll run into some problems. The problem is the government. The government should just be saying, hey, you shouldn't be allowed to do this. But I don't know, dude. I don't know, guys. It's kind of just white people's fault, honestly, dude. If you try to really just be pragmatic about it, it's like there's no rule that ever said white people weren't allowed to look out for each other. Here's the argument I'd start to make. Dude, white people are fucking mean. White people are like, you're an incel, you're a fucking manlet. Like, dude, white people did it to themselves. White people completely did it to themselves, bro. And part of it is, you're an incel, you're a manlet. All these people are trying to fucking bully the shit out of me, they're all white, dude. They're all fucking white. And now we're to a point where you can put all the puzzle pieces together. Hypergamy, Chad only, beta bucks, Chad fucks. And it's like, dude, the only fucking way to fix the white population is for Spurgburgers to have fucking families. And it's like, ha 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 ha, you're an incel. We gotta save the white race. You save the white race by helping me figure out how to fucking have a family, dude. You don't have a family because it's your fault, because you're a fucking incel. Bye-bye to the white race. That's it, dude. White people did it to themselves. It's fucking bullying. It's bullying. It's hypergamy. That's what it is. And it's like, oh, well, we were brainwashed by the tribe to be this way. It's your fault. It's your fault you got fucking brainwashed, dude. And me, with my whole universalist, hippy-dippy, mystic shit, it's like, I don't really give a fuck. I don't care. Like, this life is about me. I'm an individualist, an anarchist. I think life is about me, my individual experience, me learning what I need to learn. I weep for the white race, but I don't think it can be fixed. Mathematically, it's over. We lost. We got fucking brainwashed, and we lost. And you can try to blame it on Christianity. I blame it on fucking normies. This point that I just made, that normies have always sucked up to the government, and they've always had outliers, weirdos, tortured and killed. They did that in communism. They did that in the Christian totalitarian systems. They're doing it now as scientific atheists who hate Christians. There have always been masses of fucking white normies who want autist Spurgburgers to be tarred and feathered and tortured and killed. And now we have more autistic Spurgburger incels than we've ever had. The only way to fix the white population is for those guys to get married and have families. And they're asking for help. They're trying to tell people, like, bro, I can't get a girlfriend. I go on dating sites. I can't get matches. I can't figure it out. It's your fault. It's because, dude, it's obvious to everybody except for you, dude. Which is funny. That's why that video with the Chuds, that's why I picked that Newfound Glory song. Because if you think about those lyrics, what's your problem? Can't you see it? And you'll go and blow it like everyone knows you will. That song is basically about being a fucking incel, dude. Like, can't you see your problem? Everybody knows you're gonna blow it. Like, that's the Chud song. That's a meme, dude. Gen Z being based is a meme. Maybe not, though. There is a lot of based Gen Zers. I'm in the worst place you could possibly be. Most of the millennials didn't wake up. I'm a millennial who fucking woke up. It's why I have the superiority complex. Because I'm right. I'm like Gen Z. I think I've been a teacher to a lot of Gen Z just because I'm older. Just because I'm older and wiser. But yeah, like, most of the fucking millennials didn't wake up, dude. I woke up because I tried to make it in music, which fucking obliterated my life, which helped me wake up. Gen Z has the N-word pass. We're going to have to ask our little buddy about that. Dude, if one black guy had the power to give everybody an N-word pass, black people would not like that, dude. It's like, oh, well, we have a friend, the villain, and he gave all of us the N-word pass. Black people would not be okay with that. Dude, when everybody's like, you sang the N-word song, Stoic, it's not okay. I just pull out a picture of my little buddy. It's like, you see that guy? He's my friend. See the picture of the black guy? That's my friend. He said it's okay. Isn't there somebody you forgot to ask? My one black friend. Dude, that'd be the funniest. That's a funny meme. Like, all the hordes of normies, like, pointing at me, persecuting me. And then I have a smug face. And I'm pointing at a picture of, like, my one native friend. It's like, I have a native friend. And everybody else is like, I have a native friend. It's okay. But blue-pilled normies, dude. That's the problem, guys. I understand wanting to blame Christianity. Well, the big rant that I just went on is that Christianity has always had normies. Exoteric religion. I'm basically anti-religion, dude. I'm basically a philosopher, perennialist, mystic at this point. Hindu, or like, yeah, mainstream Hinduism, but really like Abrahamic religion. Judaism, Islam, Christianity, it's always been chocked full of normies. But the Brahmin class, the priests in the monasteries have been wise. So it's not all Christianity, but the hordes of normies, dude. Normies are the problem. Normies were always the problem. And if we're trying to talk about somebody who did nothing wrong, secret societies, bro. I feel like the secret societies was like, shh, this is where none of the normies are. Come with me. You're smart. We have to do this in secret because all the fucking normies will kill us. But I think that it was the Jesuits. The Jesuits subverted the secret societies. Jesuits were the establishment, which is why, for the most part, Freemasons are like, I don't know. I don't know if Freemasons were ever based, dude. At best, I think Freemasonry is just kind of like normies, like trying to figure out the mysteries. I'm sure there are some Freemasons who are very wise in the mysteries, but I don't know. You can learn the mysteries by just being an autist and like reading a bunch of books, dude. You don't need to join the Freemasons. There's a very, very strong argument for the Catholics being the problem. For the Catholic Church being the problem. Dude, I made a tweet about it yesterday. The Catholic Church put Joan of Arc to death, and then they canonized her 500 years later. They fucking killed Joan of Arc brutally, and then they canonized her. It's like, okay, cool story, bro. She might have been a witch, though. There's a strong case for Joan of Arc having been into occultism, but who cares? You don't need to be burnt at the stake because, like, you think some shit about paganism is cool. I'm to a point where I might not worship any gods. I would never worship pagan gods, but I might just get to this kind of like Eastern understanding. I watched a yogi last night who was talking about it. He's like, both atheists and yogis don't believe in God, but there's a difference. And I would make the argument that, like, they do believe in God, and it's the real God, and it's just a God that doesn't have any personality. like God is just some sort of a creative force that's like well beyond our fucking understanding. Or maybe we live in the deist universe where some atheist like laughed at me and didn't make a fucking argument. Dude, one of the atheist comments that somebody made was like, dude, you actually believe in the deist clock winding god? Are you serious? Bro, really, dude? Bro, really, dude? And he like never made an argument against it. It's like, no, that's just what Freemasons believe. But like, what's the problem? Like, are you gonna make an argument against it? It's just like, maybe everything is just fucking in order, kind of like atheists say, but there's some crazy divine intelligence that's so fucking far beyond your comprehension that atheists should just shut the fuck up and move on with their lives. Like, why are they so obsessed with trying to get rid of religion, dude? And I'm to the point where it's like, I think all the religions are wrong, but they're also right, like at the same time. Like, they have elements of the truth, all of them do, but the exoteric mystics, like, Muslims have Sufis, Christians have Christian mystics, Jews have like Kabbalah. Dude, all the best parts of religion are like the exoteric Kabbalah, Sufism, Christian mysticism. And then the pure form of that is like yogism, yogi, Advaita Vedanta. Miguel Serrano argues that the Aryans, the Aryan race originally was like the head of the caste system. Like the Brahmins were like maybe white people. So like Advaita Vedanta, Tantra is maybe like the ancient Aryan wisdom. But then Jesus was based. He just said to fucking be nice to everybody. I basically think Orthodoxy is like my favorite expression of Christianity. Because the Catholic Church has the Vatican and the corrupt history. Orthodoxy is more or less like Catholicism without all the blood on its hands. But then I also believe in maybe salvation by faith. Like, it's nice. I was thinking, like, you know, because I have fucked up in my life, I'm not perfect. It's nice to think that Jesus is just, he forgives you, you know, even when you fuck up. Like, you're not perfect. You try to be perfect, but you're not. So then that's nice, having the Protestant Jesus that just loves you no matter what, and you just have to believe. I basically just shamelessly take what I want from every religion and throw away what I don't like. That's the perennial philosophy. That's basically the perennial philosophy. And I gotta say, like, I am tempted to just say that I'm just a mystic and not a Christian mystic. I'm starting to think I might just tell people I'm a mystic, not a Christian mystic. But I also study Christian mysticism, and I still pray to Jesus. Because it's nice to pray to something, you know? Like Hindus pray to Krishna. It's just nice to like pray to something. And some people think Jesus was an avatar of Vishnu, but then Vishnu is just an avatar of like whatever God is. I don't think that God has ever wrote a book, bro. I don't think God ever like told people things. Or maybe he did, but they're confused about it. And I don't have it all figured out, man. I don't have it all figured out, but I reject mainstream religion is what it comes down to. There's so many splinters. So I'm in a direction where I wouldn't really worship anything. If you're into Adam Green shit, it's like, then you're going to worship pagan gods. I don't think you need to worship anything. But you pray, and maybe my best understanding of what to pray to is Jesus. And I'm at a gateway where it's like, well, maybe I should just start praying to the unknown God. But it's like, Jesus is what I know, and Jesus is what I feel comfortable with. And I still highly consider that Jesus really was divine. So I'm just going to keep doing that, you know? But I guess there might not really be like... We can't know for sure is what it comes down to. We can't know for sure. I don't like zealots. I don't like religious zealots. I don't like people who are like, you have to believe in Jesus or you're a heretic. It's based, dude. And I really, it may be in that direction where it's just like Jesus was fully enlightened. Like Jesus was fully enlightened, just like Buddha was fully enlightened. Just like, I don't know the story of Krishna that well, but like the ascended masters. And that's definitely like occultism, but is it really even that big of a difference? It's like, no, he was really God, or he was fully enlightened and he destroyed his ego. But maybe that still makes him really God. So, any way you slice it, there's all these little details that I can't iron out. But what I'm very confident about is that, like, Jesus was like a fully enlightened yogi, and he confused the shit out of the Jewish establishment of the time, and that created Christianity. And maybe some Jews kind of took advantage of it. But Jesus was like a yogi who was born a Jew, maybe, probably. But he probably did travel, and he became an ascended yogi, and he taught the Eastern way from an enlightened perspective. And Jews trying to make sense of that created Christianity. Jews also love mysticism. The Kabbalah comes from Pythagoras, I'm pretty sure. The Kabbalah basically comes from Pythagoras and maybe Plotinus, Neoplatonism, Platonism, Neoplatonism, Pythagoreanism. I think that stuff predates Kabbalah. But then there was Merkaba. And they say that Paul was into Merkaba. I wouldn't mind learning about some Kabbalah. I've just never really found it that interesting. I find it kind of unnecessary. Anything that gets into the numbers, when you start getting into gematria and the numbers, I'm like, this is just not really for me. Love thy neighbor. You need to accept getting replaced. Sorry, sweetie, but who was your neighbor before you got replaced? See, this is the legitimate question, Mountain Man. Who was your neighbor before you started getting replaced? Was white people. So the problem with that view is when the government starts to replace you, now all of a sudden your neighbor is not your own people. But if you had a government that's just like, hey, let's just not upset the natural order of having a culture, and then your neighbor is your own people. Kind of like a Rubik's Cube, dude. The government is the people who dropped the ball. Yeah, but even so, bro, like, your enemy was in your own people. Your enemy was like somebody you had a quarrel with in your own fucking people, bro. It's all on the government. The government is just meant to never allow multiculturalism. All of this problem started with multiculturalism, which ultimately came from secular humanism. It was the atheist, secular, humanist, communists who tried to create multiculturalism. And then that creates this problem that wasn't there before. All of a sudden, your neighbor is not your own race. All of a sudden, your enemy is not your own race. And then you start to blame Christianity. There's a long Christian history that did not seem to struggle with this shit, dude. The United States did not seem to struggle with this in the Founding Father times. They did not seem to have this problem. You could argue that the Catholic Church created multiculturalism. It's not in the context of war. None of that stuff is in the context of war. Turn the other cheek. It's all in the context of a civilized society that's just telling you to rise above petty quarrels. It's for a slap. A slap is like getting bullied at school, having these little quarrels. Multiculturalism is a government issue. Yeah, post World War II, man. And that's why I do kind of lean towards maybe a certain somebody being based. Our little buddy, you could say. Our little buddy in World War II who dropped the ball. And that's where I think Miguel Serrano. I think maybe Miguel Serrano is right about everything, dude. I think maybe Miguel Serrano did nothing wrong. Ancient Aryans, high caste, Brahmins, being white people, their original Hyperborean religion was Advaita Vedanta and Tantra. I still like Tantra is kind of like it's hard to understand Tantra. I don't really get it, but definitely Advaita Vedanta. And everything kind of boils down to it. Like Taoism is basically Advaita Vedanta. Christian mysticism, all the best parts are basically Advaita Vedanta. It's basically mysticism. Hitler, the Last Avatar, or really before that, you want to read The Golden Thread. So start with The Golden Thread, a book by Miguel Serrano. But he was kind of a poet. He was a poet. He's kind of like... And then there's also Satri Devi. Satri Devi, she was a National Socialist. I think she communicated with Hitler. And she was like a yogic chick, like kind of a Hindu chick. But yeah, the ancient Aryan high caste were likely white people. So the original white Hyperborean Aryan race knowledge was like Advaita Vedanta and Tantra. That's what Miguel Serrano says. And from reading Revolt Against the Modern World by Julius Evola, he kind of touched on that as well. I mean, basically, dude, Christianity being like a slave religion, that's pretty much what I believe. But there's a lot of like, it's more complicated than that. It's not so black and white. I think Jesus just fucked everything up, basically. Like the system that was created in his name is not really what he wanted. And I think it created like a productive West. I mean, Christianity created the West. You can't really argue against that. I mean, technology, the factories, the industrialized world, progress, like Christianity definitely set the world in motion to create progress. But yeah, it became like a slave system. You could argue it was always a slave system. The slavery of Christianity like created the progress. There was always the elite whipping the masses who created the progress. Yeah, it was fine when we were more homogeneous, and we were more homogeneous until very, very, very recently. Something went wrong after World War II. It's like trying to go backwards on the Rubik's Cube. It's like, well, we know we're exactly where we were before World War II. What went wrong in World War II? I really think I could make the argument that like everything I like about the Old Testament was taken from other things. I like the Psalms and the Proverbs. It takes a lot of research. You could like read books about this shit and write books about it. But I've seen it broken down before how a lot of Psalms are taken from like the Egyptian Book of the Dead and other wisdom that was already pre-existing. Seems to me like our little buddies, the Hebrews, collected a lot of wisdom from other things and then put it into their book. And it seems like they did that with the Kabbalah as well. It seems like they like to take credit for stuff that other people have done. Well, Saturn would be Cronus in the Greek. It's like the Roman Saturn, Greek Cronus, father of time. Oh, wait, there's Kronos and then Cronus, and I get them mixed up. One of them is a Titan. There's Cronus and Kronos. One of those is Saturn, and I believe that Saturn was the Titan. Saturn was a Titan. I think it's Kronos is a Titan. Time. I mean, as far as like the conspiracies behind it, like are there people that worship Saturn and there's a cult? Like, maybe. And they try to say that's what Yahweh is. Yeah, I read the Iliad in college. I read it before that, but I read it again in college. Yeah, Saturn ate his kids. I'm to a point where it's like good is good and evil is evil, bro. When you're trying to like say that something's evil or good, it's like anybody who's against Yahweh is evil, anybody who's with Yahweh is good. I mean, whoever's fucking boinking the kids is evil, dude. Whoever's like running the human trafficking is evil. Whatever they fucking believe, they're evil. Evil's just evil and good is just good. It's like, was Lucifer the good guy or was Lucifer the bad guy? Whoever's fucking boinking the kids is the bad guy, dude. Whatever they worship. I don't know what it is they worship. I think a lot of them are just atheists, bro. Like the LaVeyan Satanism. The LaVeyan Satanism, it's like we don't really believe in Satan. We just say this to mock Christians because we don't believe in fucking anything. We're just nihilists. I'm thinking based. Yeah, Serrano's based. But what you'll find in his books is that it's like poetry, and sometimes it's hard to get to the meat of it. It's like, how do I live my life? I'm trying to learn like a system of how to live from your book, and he's kind of just poetically waxing on things. And I read The Last Avatar before I read The Golden Thread. I haven't read The Golden Thread. I'd recommend starting with The Golden Thread. I think that's a better place to start. It really is, dude. Scientific atheism is just like, damn, they got fucking everything wrong. They just don't have any wisdom, dude. I can really respect anybody from any religion, man. I respect the dedicated, stringent lifestyle of a practicing Orthodox Jew or of a practicing Muslim or of any kind of Christian. I think like the lamest modern Christianity is like evangelical Christianity, which is the like Israel Christianity. Catholicism and Orthodoxy is more traditional, it has more of a practice. It has more of like rites and a practice and a system. Which a lot of Protestants are like, it's more occult. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty much an occultist again. I would just say a mystic, though. Perennialist, mystic. As far as, like, looking at sigils and trying to, like, contact demons, I'm not really into any of that shit. There's so much to explain, dude. I can just keep going in circles and circles and circles. Yo, I'm so glad I figured out how to solve a Rubik's Cube. I've always wanted to know how to solve a Rubik's Cube. Now I gotta get the 4x4, dude. Now I gotta get the fucking 4x4. Most people don't care about those, though. Like, the Rubik's Cube that everybody knows is the 3x3, and I figured it out, so whatever. If I never figure out the 4x4, who cares? I've been chudding so hard. Me too, buddy. The Vril Society. Maria Osick. I've heard of the Vril Society. Breland Hollyhand, the kid that tried to take Charlie Kirk's spot. I haven't really kept up with that. There's a couple of videos that I was really close to watching about that. Those videos popped up in my feed, and I was so close to watching them, and I was like, I just don't fucking give a shit. I'll check it out, though. I'll check it out. Yo, how about that last UFC? I should have watched the one yesterday. But, yo, Poton, he ran a fucking marathon in his training camp. That's a huge fucking point for runners, dude. I'm always trying to make the argument that's like, yo, I think like running is like one of the most important things for fighting. He ran a fucking marathon leading up to that fight, and he absolutely destroyed. I will say, though, whoever beats him will probably be a wrestler. And, you know, Ankalev beat him the first time. Like, wrestling will just always be a problem, dude. Wrestling will always be a problem for strikers. And, yeah, wrestlers don't run marathons. Wrestlers don't run that much. It's more important to, like, sprint for wrestling. But, I don't know, dude. I definitely want to run more. I'd like to see myself run a half marathon someday. I've been watching videos of ultra runners, marathon runners, people who do like the Ironman, triathlons. It's definitely impressive. Like a young Lindsey Graham. Yeah, I'll have to check him out. BMF, let's get it. Yeah, running is awesome. I gotta find some like outdoor runs, dude. Fucking thing is I can only go for an hour on the treadmill. The treadmill like only allows you to go for an hour. My best 6 mile so far is like 57:30. So I basically just want to keep improving my 6 mile. Eventually, I'll be able to get 7 miles in an hour. I mean, really good runners who run marathons, shit, they run like 6-minute miles. So they can run 10 miles in an hour. So that's pretty much going to be my goal, is like as long as I can go in an hour on the treadmill. Just try to keep improving that. Dude, the first 2.5 hours was like failing to solve the Rubik's Cube over and over and over again, but eventually I got it. And now I know how to never make that mistake ever again. I think I'll just edit out the beginning of this VOD until like right before I solve the Rubik's Cube, so you can see me solve the Rubik's Cube. But I'll leave the stream up. This is a good one. Even though it got a little bit spicy in some of the talks to where I could get in trouble. But whatever. I don't even have any warnings right now. Like, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to get cocky with it, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I got one video taken down. So I'm going to leave it up, and I'll edit out the fucking 2.5 hours of Rubik's Cube fails. 5Ks are all you need. It's hard to say, man. I mean, Poton ran a marathon. That's just a fact. The week before he took back the light heavyweight title, Poton ran a fucking marathon. So, I'm trying to figure out that sweet spot. It's like, how long of a run until like you're just a skinny little twig and you're not good at fighting? I think it's safe to say that ultra marathon runners, those guys are too skinny. I think ultra marathon runners are too skinny. But I don't know, man. I wouldn't sleep on running. You can put on a crazy pace when you're a really good runner. I'll be deadlifting in a neck brace. Yo, so that last video I made, that new style of training I'm doing, I'm feeling really good about that, guys. High frequency, low volume. But yeah, I still got that fucking lower pelvic thing going on. It's not a huge deal though. Just, I don't know. I'm pretty sure eventually that will go away. I think maybe for like a month or two, I should just back off on like the really intense runs. Tomorrow I'm going to do the air bike. I'm going to do my interval training on the air bike. UFC fighters are all about that. Wrestlers, UFC fighters, they love the air bike, the assault bike. I'll do that instead of interval sprinting. And then I just won't worry about like my 5K time for a while. I'll just do 6-mile easy runs for my runs. Should leave it as a pleb filter. Yeah, if you don't have the sense to like fast forward through 2 hours of blowing it on a Rubik's Cube, then you don't deserve to see the wisdom at the end of the video. I'm healing. Let's all just do keto for a month, guys. Let's just go live with the Eskimos because they're thriving. And then I can heal. Cole Robinson is the new durian rider, bro. That's what it comes down to. And I still think Durian Rider's pretty cool. But he's too skinny, bro. It's like, I'm lean. Cole Robinson can fucking bench press 315 for a set of 4. I mean, other than people who are like professional powerlifters, Cole Robinson's like the most mind-blowingly strong guy I've ever seen, dude. "30 to 45 minute was what I was told by a college track runner. Anything more and it deteriorates your joints over time." Well, that's the thing though. Like the better and better you get at running, the more distance you can cover in 45 minutes. But yeah, you know, you could just keep focusing on that time period and just keep trying to do better in that time. Time for snake juice. And I'm trying to hit that controlled eating window because that's the key for NoFap. I blew it yesterday because I wanted to eat and then I wanted to crank it. I did make it for one day though. And that is the key. It's like if I wanted to theoretically do NoFap, I wait to eat until like 9 or 10. And that seems to be the key for me. Dude, nobody has like real advice for NoFap. Like that's real advice. Like if you actually want to achieve NoFap, if it's that hard for you, then do intermittent fasting or just the controlled eating window because it's technically not intermittent fasting. It could be though. I just have to drink black coffee in the morning instead of the honey and then the coffee with sugar and almond milk. Dude, it was so enjoyable to like feast at nighttime. C10. Assault bike and row machine. Let's go. Yeah, some days I should start with the row machine too. I always start with some form of cardio before my full body weightlifting. Could start with the rowing machine. Could start with the assault bike. Today I did the elliptical. Boring, but whatever. Those will be the easy days. And then some days I'll do my 6 rounds boxing. First round shadow wrestling, last round jump rope. 4 rounds shadow boxing. 5 days without when I was about to move. Yeah, that's what happened when I moved here. I had like a 3 or 4 day streak. Yeah, you know, I just think if I could skip a day here and there. My goal for this week is just to achieve it again for 1 day. Do that controlled eating window again. I blame the weather. It was raining yesterday because on the days that I'm kind of fasting, I like to go to the park and like stare at the trees and do meditation and shit. And it was raining. It's like, oh, can't go to the park. Guess I better eat. Oh, I ate. Guess I better crank it. Well, for me, when I'm fasting, I find that it's not an issue. So that's the key for me. Oh, I wore this at the gym today. I told myself, like, yo, don't wear the Dragon Ball Z shirt at the gym because it's cringe. We're not worrying about that anymore, Chuddies. We're fucking Dragon Ball Z in it at the gym. Okay, guys. Well, it's been a massively long stream. It's been a fucking 3.5 hour stream. I think we're hoodie. I think we're goody. I'm ready to eat some food. Got one more ramen meal. Make ramen and tofu. And yeah, I was going to make a video. Chosen Ones movies. I have a list of 4 movies that I consider Chosen Ones movies. I think it's going to be a pretty wholesome video. If I don't make it today, I'll make it tomorrow. But I think I'm going to make it tonight still. We'll see. I streamed for a long time. I guess it's time to just go back to watching Monsters. The mini-series, or the show, it's kind of like Tales from the Crypt and Tales from the Dark Side. It's the spiritual sequel to Tales from the Dark Side. More episodes of Monsters, maybe a couple more Tales from the Dark Side. I was kind of thinking about watching Terrifier, but I think that might just be too much. I know that's like some like brutal gore torture shit. I don't know if I really want to watch that. Yeah, the original Casper's legit. That's got some strong nostalgic value. There's the guy's like, hey, piece of cake, man. And he comes out and then his head's like spun on backwards. Yeah, I'll probably put that one off. I went on a side quest and I watched these movies that I want to make the video about. I got to hurry up and make that video because people are like, what have you been watching? What have you been watching? I watched these movies that I'm about to make a video about. Man, one of them, dude. Yeah, I'm going to make that video tonight. I got to get that video about. We're going to do it. We're going to do it, gang. So, yeah, man, life is goody. Still not getting any. Isn't that a Simple Plan? Yeah, it's like the second Simple Plan album. Still not getting any. But we're working on it. And I'm pretty confident about this weightlifting routine, dude. High frequency. Last thing I'll say, guys, is you got to get prepared for November. Because this is exactly what happened last year. Like, I loved Spooktober. I loved watching all the spooky stuff. And then all of a sudden, it's November. And then it's winter. And then it's like, what the fuck do you do in November? Other than get depressed because you're not going to do anything for the holidays. So, start preparing for November and December. I'll probably go back to watching Pixar movies. I don't know. Start being prepared for whatever happens after fucking Smeartober. This Rubik's Cube, dude. Anyway, I'm glad I streamed today. It turned out to be a productive stream. I thought, I've never really streamed on a Sunday because I always consider Monday the beginning of the week. But technically, Sunday is the beginning of the week. So technically, when I said I would stream next week, it's technically what I did. I kept my wordie. Binging it. All right, gang. Well, eventually I probably will edit out a lot of that Rubik's Cube chaos. But I think this is a solid VOD. And we're going to leave it up so the Chuds can remember. We won. That's right. God bless you guys. If I make this video tonight, I'll probably wait till tomorrow to upload it, or the next day, or record it tomorrow. We'll see what happens. I'm making a video. Chosen Ones movies. God bless you guys. I'll see you for the next one. Peace out.